Hello my lovelies, good morning. It is time for another art materials review and I'm going to talk today about watercolor pencils. Oh, this is the lid of the tin that I'm going to show you. Watercolor pencils are super fun, they're really easy to use and they're really versatile. So let's turn my camera around and let's have a look at how to use them, and we'll do a little mini tutorial as well. These are the pencils that I'm going to use today, and they look like normal color pencils. They look like normal color pencils, but if you look closely, you can see, well, first of all, they say watercolor, and they have this little brush on, like, icon on the pencil. And that is something that a lot of watercolor pencils have. So these Stabilo Woodies, for example, here you can see there's a little brush on it. That usually means that you can take, or not usually, that means that you can use this as watercolor paint. I also have some CosArt watercolor pencils here, and they say watercolor in text on the side. I'm going to use my Sea White of Brighton sketchbook, and it's almost full. You can see this is my messy, playful sketchbook full of different art materials and different types of sketches and practices and fun. So there we go. And I have one page left at the end. So two more drawings, one on this side and one on the back. And I'm going to use this side today. There we go. Let me put a clip on it. So have my pencils at the ready. And let me find a reference photo to use for today. I will also share the link to this if you want to download the reference picture. There we go. So first of all, I want to show you that you can use your watercolor pencils dry. They work the same as any other dry pencil. So I'm just sketching with this. You can see it feels like a normal color pencil. I'm just making like a loose interpretation of this cow. I love Highlander cows, so there we go, one of my favorite type of animals. So there we go. So I'm making a really quick sketch, just really focusing on the big shapes. There's a bit of a mark here on the paper, which I'm just ignoring. And this just feels the same as any other color pencil. So I'll go a little bit darker so you can see what I'm doing. So, and I can start layering my colors a little bit thicker. So, there we go. So I'm just coloring in this shape. I want this to be quite a quick drawing, so I'm only doing the portrait, not the whole animal today. So, and I'm simplifying the shapes. This is just a fun, quick drawing, full of character and not necessarily the most realistic version of this cow. So, there we go. So we have a little bit of brown on the paper. For the horns, I will use a bit of grey. So. There we go. So you can see this is quite a quick sketch. It's more about showing you the product than doing like a very in-depth tutorial. But please feel free to join in. It's always fun to see what you're creating. So there we go. And I might add a little bit of extra color in there, just because you know I love a bit of a rainbow animal. So I'm adding a bit of yellow here. So there we go. Bit of bit of yellow in the horns. And these colors are all going to be mixed up in a short moment. So I don't want to mix too many colors. I'm playing it a little bit safe. I'm adding a little bit of this very light purple, light violet to the horns. Because I think it will look really nice in combination with this grey. Maybe a bit here for some shadows. So you can see I'm doing this very loose and quick. Not focus too much on the details, just really setting a bit of a base layer of colors. So now I'm going to add some water to it. I'm just going to use a really simple water-filled brush. So I'm not doing anything complicated. You can use a cup of water, and you can use a cup of water and a brush. There we go. So I'm adding a little bit of water. I'm just squeezing my brush a little bit, adding some water to the picture, and it changes the texture of the watercolor pencil into paint. So the trick is not to add too much water. If you find that your paint is not dissolving into paint, you might need to do a bit of circular moves, rub it a little bit. So there we go. And you can see how this is changing into paint. You have to be a little bit careful if you do a dark color, or just any color really, to clean your brush between colors, because the paint will stay onto the brush a little bit and you can contaminate other areas of your picture. So, and these watercolors will stay like impermanent as normal watercolors. You can always reactivate the layers. There is watercolor pencils, for example the Inktense pencils. They change into ink and they dry up waterproof. These do not. You can always reactivate them again, but for today's tutorial it doesn't really make a difference because this is a very thin layer. So you can see that this has changed into paint. And you can see a little bit of the color pencil texture still shining through. And I love that mix of textures. I'm not finished yet. I'm going to add more layers to this. And there's different ways on how to use your color pencils. I'm going to grab myself a cup of water because I want to show you this. So, there we go. I have filled a cup of water. And I just want to show you that you can use your watercolor pencils also by quickly dipping them into water. And then adding textures to the drawing. You can use them dry as well, so this will slowly dry. But the texture is different when you add them into water. So the texture is a bit more intense when you dip them into water. So I'm just going to go and add, you see now my pencil is drying up. The texture changes. So I'm going to go over this drawing that I made, either with a dry pencil or with making my pencil a bit wet, and add some extra texture to the drawing. And I'm using a slightly darker brown here, going for quite natural colors, a bit more natural than what I usually do. Because if you've been following me along, or if you've been joining my classes for a while, you know I love a rainbow drawing. So I often add in lots of extra colors, just having fun with these. And this is one of my favorite animals. I think they're just lovely and I like the energy of them. So in a really playful way, I'm adding some texture to this drawing, to the hairs. I'm thinking of adding the texture in the direction where the hair is going into as well. So what we're doing with watercolor pencils is a bit of a mix between drawing and painting. And what I really like about it is that you have the freedom of color pens, the freedom of watercolors, like the texture and the energy of watercolors, but also the precision of color pencil. So color pencil is a bit more precise, it's easier to add your lines, you know, you have a bit more control, you know what's happening. And with watercolors you have that lovely fluid watercolor textures here. See, this is where I went off beat. I'm starting to add a bit of blue to the drawing. And if you want to do less textured layers, wait for your first layer to dry a little bit more. So I know my camera is a bit shaky. If you want to do more even, softer, less textured layers, wait for your first layer to dry a little bit more. And it will affect how the pencil sort of looks onto the paper and how it attaches to the paper. If it attaches a little bit easier or a little bit harder. Actually, let me use some of this brown, like warm orange brown. It's called orange chrome. So my intention for today was just to show you what watercolor pencils are, how to use them, and make a really quick sketch. So my intention for this whole drawing is to be 15-20 minutes, maybe tops. So I'm trying not to get caught up in the details too much. So, and you can add water multiple times. So just because now I have, I'm using my pencils dry again, the layers underneath are drying up. That doesn't mean that I have to keep them dry. I can always make them wet again and then it will turn into paint, or just dip my pencil in the water and use my paint sort of directly that way. So, really enjoying this loose sketch. Just as with normal color pencils, you can increase the pressure of your pen, of your pencil on the paper to create darker marks. And I do find that usually my watercolor pencils are a bit softer than my normal color pencils. They feel a little bit different. They have a slightly different energy and vibe. So you might notice if this is something that you use more regular, that you prefer one or the other. So. Making the nose a little bit dark, and I think I might add another layer of water to this. So where's my brush? Slightly chaotic. There we go, on this side. So I'm just going to add another layer of water to this, just to show you how that works. And that will instantly also make this layer a bit more vibrant in color. I always find that you notice quite a big difference in color between using the pencils dry or wet. So I'm curious if you find this as well, and I always recommend testing your pencils first with and without water, just to see what the difference is and how it affects your artwork and color. So see, there we go. So you can work in different layers of color this way, just as with normal watercolors, aquarelle. So it's got a lot of little hair sticking out. I'm using my brush to flick that a little bit. So there we go. So you can see the texture changes, and this is just a really fun, quick little sketch today. I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to add the last bit of detail, and I think that's then going to be it for today. So there we go, everything is dry, and you can see how a lot of this really looks like paint now. It's a nice mix of textures that has sort of appeared today. And I'm going to use a bit of black just to add some eyes. I know that in the photo we can't really see the eyes, but so I'm doing them a bit squiggly, so they're sort of hidden under the hair. I want the nose to be a little bit darker. The mouth to be a little bit darker. Maybe a little bit of shadow here. I'm doing it very gently. So I think he looks quite cute. Maybe a little bit of more orangey brown here. So there we go. This is my quick sketch for today. I think it came out quite cute. You have to trust the process. It's a little quick messy sketch, perfect for this Saturday afternoon. And yeah, thank you so much for joining in. I hope that you're curious about watercolor pencils now. I might film another tutorial using these soon. And yeah, let me know what you've created. I always love seeing what you've made.